All right? If you think you're brave enough, then watch this. I dare you. But be warned, this story isn't like the usual horror film. This is a real-life haunting that will chill you to your core. It's the terrifying true story behind The Conjuring. The movie is one thing, but the real-life horror, that's something else entirely. So, are you ready? If you dare, stay tuned and hit subscribe, because you might want to remember this before it's too late. Introduction to the Perron family. In 1971, the Perron family moved into a large farmhouse located in Harrisville, Rhode Island. The house stood alone in a quiet, rural area, its windows looking out over acres of farmland. For Roger and Carolyn Perron, the house was a dream come true. They wanted a peaceful life away from the bustle of the city, and the farmhouse seemed perfect, a spacious home for their 5 daughters, Andrea, Nancy, Christine, Cindy, and April. But as soon as they moved in, it became clear that something wasn't right. The house had an old, worn feel to it, with creaky floors and an unsettling silence that filled the air. But the family didn't think much of it at first. After all, it was a large, old farmhouse. Naturally, it would make strange sounds. But soon, strange things began to happen. At first, it was small things. A door would open by itself, and the children would hear footsteps when no one was around. A cold draft would sweep through rooms that were otherwise warm, and the smell of something foul would occasionally fill the air for no apparent reason. Carolyn thought nothing of it, until she noticed the old portrait hanging in the entryway. The woman in the picture had a strange, almost menacing look to her. She felt drawn to it, but something about the painting unsettled her. One evening, Carolyn was sitting in the living room when she noticed something odd. The dog, Sadie, refused to come inside. She watched as the dog paced back and forth outside, her hackles raised. The next day, the children's toys began moving on their own, rolling across the floor, as if someone unseen was pushing them. The family began to realize something more sinister was at play. But it wasn't until the disturbances escalated, objects flying off shelves, things being knocked over, and voices whispering from the shadows, that Carolyn knew this wasn't just a case of imagination. It was real, and it was terrifying. The first signs of haunting. One evening, Carolyn was in the basement when she heard the unmistakable sound of children laughing. But when she turned around, the house was eerily silent. No one was there. It was at that moment that Carolyn realized something far more sinister was happening in her home. She could feel it, a presence, a heavy, oppressive force, watching her from the shadows. As the days went on, the family's experiences became more frightening. Carolyn began having vivid dreams, nightmares of a woman in the house. She could see her clearly in her mind's eye. An older woman with hollow eyes and a menacing smile. This wasn't just a dream, it felt real. Things got worse when Carolyn woke one night to find herself unable to move. A cold, invisible force pinned her to the bed. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. The only thing she could do was pray. When she finally regained control of her body, she could hear whispers in her ears. "Leave this house, leave now." But it wasn't just Carolyn who was affected. The children began experiencing strange things as well. April, the youngest, would often talk to an imaginary friend, a spirit she called the man in the corner. At first it seemed harmless, but as the months went by, April's imaginary friend grew darker and more threatening. It wasn't long before the family realized that the house wasn't just haunted, it was being actively terrorized by something dark and malevolent. The history of the house. As the terrifying incidents escalated, the Perron family reached out for help. Desperate, they turned to the most well-known paranormal investigators in the country, Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens were known for their tireless work investigating hauntings, many of which involved darker, more sinister forces. Ed, a demonologist, and Lorraine, a clairvoyant, had dealt with countless cases over the years, but they had never encountered a case as disturbing as the one in the Perron's farmhouse. Before arriving at the house, Ed and Lorraine conducted research into the property's history, hoping to find a clue to explain the increasingly bizarre events. What they discovered sent chills down their spines. The farmhouse had a dark and tragic history long before the Perron family ever set foot in it. In the 1800s, the house had been owned by a woman named Bathsheba Sherman who, according to local legends, was accused of witchcraft. She had been a midwife in the area, but after several mysterious deaths occurred in the town, children who had died under her care, whispers about her dark powers began to spread. The most chilling accusation was that Bathsheba had sacrificed her child to the devil in exchange for eternal power. Though there was no concrete proof of these claims, they were enough to mark Bathsheba as an outcast, and she died in the house under suspicious circumstances. After her death, the house passed through a series of owners, each of whom reported strange occurrences, loud noises, the sensation of being watched, and, eventually, violent deaths. The Warrens' investigation into the history of the land revealed that Bathsheba's spirit was said to be bound to the farmhouse, a vengeful and malevolent force determined to destroy anyone who lived there. Lorraine, who was a psychic, felt the presence of this evil almost immediately. As soon as she stepped onto the property, she experienced overwhelming visions of Bathsheba's life, her twisted, tortured soul, and the violent forces she had summoned in life. But the most disturbing part of Lorraine's vision was Bathsheba's desire to possess Carolyn Perron. The spirit sought to control Carolyn just as it had controlled the others before her. When Lorraine spoke to Ed about the possibility of a possession, Ed's face grew grim. "We need to act fast. This is not just a haunting. This is something darker, something dangerous." The Warrens arrive. The Warrens arrived at the farmhouse with a deep sense of urgency. Lorraine, already shaken by her psychic visions, warned Ed that they would be dealing with a very powerful and very evil entity. As they walked through the house, Lorraine could sense the oppressive atmosphere weighing down on her, a feeling that grew stronger with every step. The moment they entered the living room, Lorraine felt an icy coldness fill the air. It wasn't just the temperature. There was something about the house, something that made the air feel heavy and unnatural. She closed her eyes for a moment, concentrating, as she often did during investigations. The house was filled with spirits, lost souls caught in a cycle of torment. But at the center of it all was Bathsheba, an ancient, dark spirit whose power seemed to radiate from the walls. Lorraine turned to Ed. "She's here. Bathsheba. She's angry, Ed, and she's feeding off the fear in this house. If we don't stop this now, it will only get worse." Ed nodded gravely, his face tight with concern. "We need to find out how to stop her, and we need to do it fast." Ed and Lorraine set up their equipment, cameras, audio recorders, and their specialized tools to capture paranormal activity. As they did, the atmosphere in the house grew thicker, heavier. The temperature dropped even more, and strange sounds echoed from the walls. The house seemed alive with movement, as though the very structure was breathing. The Warrens began their investigation in the basement, where Carolyn had felt the most intense presence. As they walked through the darkness, Ed's flashlight flickered briefly, casting long, unsettling shadows along the walls. The air was thick, and every step they took seemed to stir something in the house. Suddenly, Lorraine stopped, her eyes wide with fear. "It's here," she whispered. "She's watching us." At that moment, the house seemed to come alive. Doors slammed shut, furniture moved on its own, and the temperature dropped so sharply that the Warrens' breath became visible. The whispering voices grew louder as if the spirits were surrounding them. In one of the most intense moments of the investigation, Lorraine fell to her knees, overcome with a psychic vision of Bathsheba's violent death, how she had taken her own life in that very house, consumed by guilt and rage. It was clear now, Bathsheba's spirit was bound to the land, and it was using Carolyn to finish what she had started. The climax. The exorcism. By now, the family's situation had grown desperate. Carolyn's behavior had become increasingly erratic. She had begun speaking in strange, guttural tones, and her physical health deteriorated rapidly. The Warrens knew that time was running out. As night fell, Ed and Lorraine decided that they had no choice but to attempt an exorcism. But they knew it would be dangerous. Exorcisms were never easy, and in cases like this, where the entity was as powerful as Bathsheba, it could be deadly. They gathered the Perron family in the living room, preparing for the ritual. Carolyn, sitting in a chair at the center of the room, seemed distant, her eyes glazed over. She was no longer fully present. Something else was controlling her. Lorraine took Ed's hand and spoke softly. "We have to be strong, Ed. We have to save her." Ed nodded, his jaw clenched, and turned toward Carolyn. He began the prayers, reciting ancient words meant to drive the demon out. The air in the room grew colder, and the lights flickered. Carolyn's body began to tremble violently, as if an invisible force was trying to break free from within her. Suddenly, Carolyn let out a horrifying scream, a sound so guttural it seemed inhuman. Her body twisted in unnatural ways, and for a moment, Ed feared she might break apart. The Warrens pressed on, their voices steady as they continued the exorcism. They could feel the entity fighting back, using every ounce of power it had to resist. The house shook with the force of the battle, but Ed and Lorraine remained focused. They knew they couldn't stop until Bathsheba was gone. With one final thunderous scream, Carolyn collapsed, her body still and lifeless. For a moment, the room was silent, and then the air lightened. The oppressive feeling that had haunted the house for so long began to lift, as if the spirit of Bathsheba had finally been cast out. Lorraine looked at Ed, tears in her eyes. "We did it, Ed. She's free." Aftermath and conclusion. In the weeks that followed, the Perron family began to recover. The haunting was over, but the psychological scars remained. Carolyn, though no longer possessed, was left with a deep sense of dread and a haunting memory of what had transpired in the house. The Warrens, having freed the family from the clutches of Bathsheba's spirit, left the farmhouse knowing that this case, while successfully concluded, would always be one of the most terrifying they had ever encountered. The house had been purged of its dark energy, but the memories of the events that took place there would linger. The Perron family eventually moved away from the farmhouse, but the terror they had experienced stayed with them for the rest of their lives. The Conjuring case became one of Ed and Lorraine Warren's most famous investigations, a case that would haunt them forever. And for those who dared to visit the house, it was rumored that the spirit of Bathsheba still roamed, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to wander too close. Conclusion: if you dare to believe in the supernatural, then you must know that sometimes the darkest forces aren't just stories told around a campfire. They're real, they're dangerous, and they're out there. The Conjuring is a testament to the fact that evil never truly leaves. Sometimes it just waits for the right time to strike. If you want more spine-chilling true crime and paranormal stories, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned, because there are many more stories where this one came from.